was this incredible explosion. All you saw was dust. And, and our reaction is you got to get out of there. And so we're trying to get the rest of the team on the radio. Can't raise anybody on the radio. And, call sign after call sign. And I'm just thinking we're getting blown up. And then another one goes off and it just rocks us. And all I can see in back is leaves and dust. And I'm thinking, man, I'm losing my team.
Welcome to Shaping the Basin. I am here today with Spencer Martin.
That's me.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
You are part of our America 250 series where we're talking to veterans. What branch did you serve in?
I started out in the Marine Corps back in the 80s, and then I finished my career in the Army National Guard as a full-time member of the Army National Guard.
The first time I met somebody that had changed branches like that, I was surprised. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's a great thing. I mean, there's sometimes when you start in the military early and you're a young person, maybe that's not what you wanted to do, and maybe you got out for whatever reason, and then as you start maturing, you start looking back, thinking, God, that was really a great part of my life, or it really meant something to me, and that's what happened to me. I started out in the Marine Corps Reserves. I was up at Whidbey Island, Washington, Eugene, down in Bakersfield, California. And the whole time I just felt, I don't know, I loved the Marine Corps. I loved that I was a Marine or am a Marine. But I also wanted out really bad. There was other things I wanted to do. I wanted to party, chase girls, whatever it was. And so I got out and, then that was before Desert Storm. And when Desert Storm hit, I wanted to go back in and the Marines were like, yeah, no, we don't need you anymore. You got out. And I was like, oh, wow. So then I started talking. I was actually dating this guy's sister and he was in the Army Guard and he goes, yeah, why don't you come to one of our drills, and so I did. So I felt kind of obligated because I was dating his sister and I also kind of liked it. And so I thought, well, I'll do it for a year. And then it just went on and 2 years later I was active duty with him and 24 years later I retired.
Dang.
Yeah.
Is there a moment from your service that still sticks with you that really stands out?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, deployment, I deployed to Afghanistan in 2006. So we trained up in Mississippi and then we were over in country for a year. So, I mean, that was life, that was a life moment. That was, a definition moment. And then, Marine Corps boot, the whole Marine Corps training experience was absolutely transformational. I mean, you don't know who you are until you go through that, and then when, at the end of it, you're looking back going, how did I do that? Mm-hmm. And deploying is going into combat theater is a similar experience. And depending on what your experience is in theater, same thing. You get through, you're trudging through it day to day and you're just like, holy cow, I got to get through this. I want to go home. And then when you look back on it and you look back at what you did, what your accomplishments were, hopefully for most military personnel, there was something in there that they look back on and they go, oh, wow, how significant was that? Some more than others, I think, and some, unfortunately, not great experiences. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know how I got off track. But anyway, yeah, you absolutely get those are the two things that, other than promotions and stuff like that, but those two things were the most significant things in my military career.
Yeah. When you look back on that time, can you tell us about a significant experience you had or a moment that you were really proud of during that time? You said everybody has a significant moment.
Yeah. I mean, so, there's a lot of stories from Afghanistan and everybody always tells war stories. And, certainly the people that I was with, our crew, pride, I would say, my team was called a non-lethal effects cell. So non-lethal being the operative word. We were involved in things, we were involved with kind of cohorting with civil affairs units, different elements that were from the Army that were out there that building bridges, teaching people how to grow something other than poppies and marijuana. We were running, med caps, missions where we were treating people medically. My team, we were involved in a complete remodel of an emergency hospital in Kabul. We cleaned out cisterns in Herat. We did some limited stuff down in Kandahar. The pride that I take in is that everybody on my team that I had any control over had at least one significant thing that they were in charge of, so they could go home with, "I did that for those people," and it didn't have anything to do with hurting people or killing them.
Mhm.
Um, so that there's a lot of pride in that, and a lot of people, a lot of us were rewarded, medals or whatever, promotions, whatever it may be, because we did it. My team did an excellent job. We had excellent leadership. It was at the right time. We had great funding, and we were able to accomplish, tenfold what the teams before us had been able to do, and set and basically build a platform for the teams that succeeded us. So that was a pride moment. Those that was that's that's the that was the feel good.
Mhm.
Um, I guess the anecdotal story is that when you ask about well, what happened to you in Afghanistan, my favorite, the only story that I tell actually is we were in the green zone in Kabul, and back then we were in Toyota Land Cruisers, and we had decked them all. We'd taken all of the all of the identifying stuff off of them, and we had tinted the windows and put these. And I can't remember why, but a lot of Afghans, they put these falcons. It's some patriotic or religious symbol. They're in the so we had falcon stickers in the windows and dingle balls. And anyway, we're driving down the road, and my interpreter and my one of my colonels was with me, and had a couple guys in the back, and we were in a convoy of about, I don't know, 4 or 5 vehicles, and there was this incredible explosion. All you saw was dust, and and our reaction is, you got to get out of there. And so we're trying to get the rest of the team on the radio. Can't raise anybody on the radio, and call sign after call sign, and I'm just thinking we're getting blown up, and then another one goes off, and it just rocks us. And all I can see in back is leaves and dust, and I'm thinking, man, I'm losing my team. And so we barrel around this corner and we roll into this big compound. It was a big sports field adjacent to the green zone, and the guards are waving us through, and because we're in a panic, and I parked, I stopped, I got out, and I was about ready to just start crying. I thought we'd probably lost 2 or 3 vehicles, and they just keep rolling in. And so what it was Afghan Independence Day, and they had these howitzers, and they had the so they had the muzzles of these cannons right. If you were looking at a fence, they had them right here. You couldn't see them from the road, but they were shooting blanks. But the concussion was blowing all the stuff around, and I
Oh,
thought
no.
that we were involved in this daisy chain thing. Stupid me, and thankfully we weren't. But yeah, that was the scariest, one of the scariest moments, and actually at the end of it was the happiest moment of life, to see all these
Oh
guys
my gosh.
rolling in the compound, right? So yeah, that's the one story I tell everybody about Afghanistan.
Dang.
Yeah.
You in when you were talking about all of that, you just talked about team a lot.
Hmm.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about teamwork. How has that affected you as you've gone on past your military service?
Well, everything's about teamwork. I mean, you can't. There's nothing that an individual could have really can accomplish in the military. Whether you're the leader or you're the E1, the private, it takes everybody to make that happen, and you got to get your way through it. And in my military career, everything was always about the team. How do we become successful? You have standouts and rock stars, but um, and that applies to everything. Out here, for instance, the organization that I belong to, the Marine Corps League, the Klamath Marine Heritage Corporation. Um, there's nothing you can do alone, and it's hard because with fraternal organizations, you're losing more people than you're gaining every year, and so trying to get your team together is so difficult. And once you do, you really got to try to claw onto that and hold on to it, because if you don't, you end up alone.
Mhm.
And so it takes so many veterans to come. We're constantly searching for more veterans to come in and plus up that team. And teamwork has served me well at my job. Since I retired, I work for a company here in Klamath Falls, and everything we do is crews, teams, foremen, so the structure is so similar, I don't think I've ever, I'll be honest with you, except when I was a little kid, like a teenager, I worked at a lumber store here in town, and I was absolutely alone stacking wood 4 or 5 hours a day but since then, I don't think I've really worked, uh, not in a team.
Mhm.
So,
You mentioned here in the fraternal organizations in the Marine Corps League and stuff that you're losing people. Is that
mhm.
just people aging out? Are younger generations not getting involved at the same level?
It's a great question, and it's both. It's everybody gets older, right? When I started in the Marine Corps League, we still had World War I veterans, and you just watch people go. We have no more World War II veterans in this chapter. I would say in town, you probably might have a handful left. Um, so now we're getting into the Korean War, which is not much farther past World War II, and then you have a little break, and then you get into Vietnam. Our Vietnam veterans are in their 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
Um, and 5, 10 years from now, where are you going to be? Those are the guys, the World War II guys, the Korean War guys, and the Vietnam guys are the ones that kept this thing going for years. There was a proximity there, and they used this, and it was pre-social media. It was this was where these were the VFW, the American Legion, and the Marine Corps League were places where you could go and you could socialize and you could catch up on what's going on with Tom, Dick, and Harry. And now you can do that on your phone. Um, and so the propensity for people post Vietnam and moving into the technology era or whatever social media era, um, for them to join these organizations and stay long term, it's diminishing. And it's true for the Elks and the Eagles and everybody else. We recruit as hard as we can. We do gain some people. There's a kind of a work home. There's the ethics are changing a little bit. I get a lot with the younger people. Hey, I've got kids, I've got a job, and when that's all over, maybe I'll think about spending more time down there, and that's fine, and I understand that. But I mean, I my entire life, I have made time to be part of this organization and also part of the VFW as a volunteer because if you don't have that continuity, you're going to lose them. And I think that's where we're at right now. I mean, my biggest fear um, for this place, for the Leatherneck, for the Marine Corps League, um, I think that we're in very close proximity of losing something really special here. We collect and preserve and archive all kinds of different memorabilia. People who lose their loved ones, they bring their stuff in and say, "Hey, this guy was a Marine for 20 years. Here's his stuff." And we don't have room to display it all, but we hold on to it. I mean, what else would you do with it? And I think that if we don't start getting some good dedicated people that want to come in and run these things and these operations, I fear that we'll lose them and we won't replace them.
Mhm.
And then you'll just have they just won't be here. And I can't speak for the other organizations, but I think that's it's kind of indicative of all fraternal organizations, and it's sad. It really
Mhm.
is. So, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It just there's I'm not sure you have the answer for it, but it always makes me think being connected via tech a device is good in a pinch, but it does not replace the human connection.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. But there's a lot of people that would disagree with you. I had somebody in my life a few years ago who was a child of somebody that I knew, and she met her best friend online. They were best friends for 2 years, and then she went to this person's wedding and found out that they weren't best friends, and but it was this weird dynamic. It's like you've never seen that person,
Mhm.
no physical, no nothing. Very rarely had even spoken on the telephone, and everything was just was texting and whatever, and people are creating entire relationships on these social media platforms, never having engaged with a human being.
Mhm.
And that's why people are so successful in catfishing and doing all the other things that they're doing, because, you know, and I know people here in town that have had their life savings cleaned out just because of that. People are falling in love with an imaginary person.
Right.
And I think that's really odd. And I think that's why these places are so important, because it is more tactile, it is more personal, and you can come here and it's a real environment.
Mhm.
And I think that especially with veterans, a lot of our veterans isolate so much that places like this are probably more important than they ever were. But keeping them going and trying to overcome the attitudes or whatever conception our veterans have about these places, we're having a hard time overcoming that,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
It's easy to get lost. Don't know which path to take, what to post. In the social media jungle, video is king. Your kids are obsessed, your customers are addicted, we're all hooked, and social media sites prioritize videos. So when you're ready to stand out from the crowd, reach out to 40 Deuce Films. Feeling over everything.
Why do veterans isolate so much? Is it just because it's hard to get others to understand what they've been through, or?
You know, I can't speak for every veteran, and you know, I've got limited experience with you know, the psychology of PTSD or you know, or deployment anxiety or whatever, you know, most of us are diagnosed with. For me, speaking for me, um, the things that were important to me before I went overseas aren't as important as they are now. And the things that excited me, the things that I was really into, that almost wholesale changed.
Mhm.
And that includes people and being around people. One of the big, I used to love partying. I used to love being around people. I used to go bar hopping and all that stuff. And when I got back, that just wasn't. I loved this place. I love the V, sometimes the Legion, but I really didn't go out in any where there wasn't people that I knew were like minded or that I knew actually. Um, Stop going to Disneyland. Stop going to pro ball games. Stop, you know, because too many people. It was just too scary. I can't. I get claustrophobic. I can't stand it. Um, Emotions, you know, feelings of regret, feelings of loss, you know, anxiety over, you know, a guilt over maybe you lost somebody in country, you know, that, you know, you feel, why me, why not, why him, and why not me? There's so many factors that start playing in a veteran's head. I think that it's probably mentally and physically easier to not deal
Mhm.
than it is to go out and deal with anything. And so, you know, and like I said, I think there's a full spectrum of why guys and gals isolate. But for me, it was just, I don't like dealing with, I don't confrontation. I don't want to deal with it. I hate traffic. I don't like people. I don't like, I mean, there's, you know, it's just like, it's easier to stay home, eat food, get fat and go to work, you know, whatever it is. And yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, my scope of friends is whittled down from what I thought were, you know, 20, 30 close friends. I've got two or three.
Mhm.
You know, I've got some people that are still my friends, but close people that you know, in a pinch kind of people, you know, maybe a handful, where I used to think there was a whole bunch of them. And that's the other thing, you know, when you're in a crisis or when you're going through things, you start realizing who really's got your back. It makes it a lot easier to isolate too, because you're thinking, yeah, that guy was never my friend anyway. And that's another thing.
Mhm.
You know, but you start not, for me, I started forgetting that there are different levels of friends, different types of friends, friends for every occasion. And I started getting mad at people for moving away. I started getting mad at people for not calling me. And I ghosted them. And then you realize years later, well, I probably shouldn't have done that. Those were really nice people, but what's done is done. You know, sometimes you try to connect and it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
Yeah.
lots of reasons for isolation, and some of those were mine.
Yeah. What is it? I hear how important like the Marine Corps League and coming down here and being a part of that. It's like a continuation of the service in a way
Mhm.
that you do for your community. What's it like to come down here for somebody that's never come to the Leatherneck Club who might be nervous and be like,
Yeah,
oh,
well, certainly there's nothing to be nervous about. And probably what you'll find is exactly what a lot of guys aren't interested in doing is you're going to find, it's here, it's quiet, it's peaceful. You got a couple of the older guys, at the bar. They have their regular spot and they're talking about the same thing every day. What I come down here for is, um, A, just to support it. B, I love volunteering for some of the events that we do and some of the causes that we have. If you're looking for a place to relax, just come down and mess around on your computer, or if you're looking for, you want to come just meet some old vendors, or you've got a group of guys you don't know where else to go and you want to come meet somewhere. If you're a Marine, this is the place for you. And you can come down here and you don't have to worry about going someplace where a few drinks might get somebody else aggravated and get you punched in the back of the head. You don't have to worry about being around a bunch of people talking a bunch of nonsense, political crap, and whatever your values are, or whatever your beliefs are. In here, we try really hard to keep it pretty neutral in terms of, we try really hard not to talk about stuff like that, because there's military members on both sides of the spectrum, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to enjoy ourselves, relax, safe place, stable place, and try to offer you as many of the amenities as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And we have, some of the space that we have, although limited, you can come in and have small events. We've had people come in and do little poker tournaments or whatever on occasion, and just a place to go, something to belong to. It's not rowdy. There's no smoking in here. It's not a smoky old bar room. We got some food, we got burgers and sandwiches and again, each one of the service organizations, the service clubs, has things that they offer. We're all very similar. But each one of them has its own little nuances. And, so like I said, I encourage people, especially if they just want to get out and check something out, get out and see, at least see one of them and get involved. There's no reason to be sitting at home alone.
Yeah.
So.
I like that. Why did you pick the Marine Corps first?
Oh gosh. I'll be honest. I actually was recruited by a guy named Joe Milstead. He was a former Navy SEAL, and he was the Navy recruiter here in town. He was Vietnam era guy, and always had he had a buzz cut flat top, chain smoked cigarettes, wonderful dude. And he had this Southern, I don't know where he's from, probably like Kentucky or something accent. And he had been here for 1,000 years. And Joe got a hold of me first and was going to put me in submarines. And that was it. I was getting ready to join. And then the Marine Corps recruiter got involved. And he was a much younger guy, and he was an avionics technician. And he really got he identified with me a little bit better. And so he swooped me from Joe. He would call me every day. And so finally my parents were out of town. I was having a party at my parents' house, and he called me and I said, "Look, man, if you just leave me alone for a week, I'll come in and I'll join." And that's what I did. So, my mom and my mom cried, and my dad wouldn't sign the papers, and nobody wanted me to do it. And I insisted. And then when I got down there, they got a job as what they call the GI private. I was one of the garbage men for the chow hall down there, like mid-cycle. And I used to cut pieces of cardboard off of the boxes, and I had a pen, and I would draw a little map. Here's San Diego, here's Klamath Falls, here's a line. I'd be like, call the governor, call the president, come find me, get me the hell out of here. And I put a stamp on it and throw it. My mom, when I retired from the military, my mom brought this stack of those. But anyway, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Did they not want you to join the Marine Corps, or they didn't want you to join the service at all?
I don't. My parents were, and they're wonderful people. I love my parents. My mom much more supportive of my dad. My dad just didn't think that that was a path forward for either one of his sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I might have done it just because that's what they didn't want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up as a little kid, all the way through high school. Every report that I ever did was about the military. Fascinated with the old World War II comic books, fascinated with the war memorabilia in the back of the surplus magazines. And for whatever reason, and my grandfather he was in the Navy, World War II. He served on Tinian and Saipan. And I really admired him, my dad's dad. And I just think that whatever combination it was, I think it was always in the back of my mind that that's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some stories with me today. Well, I'm going to ask you, I'm actually going to ask these questions of all of our veterans at the end of these episodes, but this is America 250, or America's 250 years old. So, what do you hope America remembers as we turn 250?
Well, and again, without getting, getting politically insensitive, I think that we have to remember, after 250 years, you got to remember where you came from. Why did we start this great experiment that's the United States of America? Why in just the how we have that we are all Americans, I think is the most important thing. We get so, we create these little pockets of people and stuff, and it's look, we should all be supporting this as our country, our great nation, and with that in mind, we stand alone as Americans, and we should be supporting each other. And I see a lot of division right now, and I think that if you got anything out of 250 years of history, certainly this is America, and we all belong to it, and we need to be supporting it that way.
Very good. Um, what does patriotism mean to you now versus maybe what it meant to you when you first signed up? Has it changed?
Uh, for me, not really. I mean, it's more important now just because of the sacrifices that I've witnessed and the work that I've done over the years. So I get way more disappointed when you have an anemic parade or everybody's got to go on vacation because it's Memorial Day or Veterans Day that it doesn't represent. We call it those things, but there's more people more interested in taking the time off than in getting the time off than actually supporting why we're having that day. So in that respect, I've gotten a lot stronger there because I was that guy. Memorial Day's coming up. We don't got school. We don't got to do this. We get to go on vacation. Here comes Veterans Day. Same thing. Um, so yeah, I'm much more sensitive to that now. And I am way more sensitive to why we are Americans and looking forward as America, as the United States evolves, what does that look like?
Mm.
Concerns me sometimes, but for the most part, I'm super proud to be part of this and super proud to have served with the people that I've served with and all of the people that came before me and that are doing the job after me.
Mhm. That's awesome. I I started to say Happy Memorial Day this year, and I was like, I can't say that. That's terrible because you do start to think about it
Yeah.
if you think about what the day actually is. So,
Well, and Memorial Day is a hard one because when you say thank you for your service, that's really meant for living veterans.
mhm.
Memorial Day is we're remembering our dead, our deceased, right? So that's a tough one, and it's also tough for most veterans when either way, thank you for your service, and then what do you well, so I usually stick with two responses. Well, thanks for paying my paycheck the whole time, and also it's been my honor.
Mhm.
There's no return on Memorial Day other than yeah, let's remember our fallen together or something like that. But sometimes you only got a half a second to respond, and you're usually, yeah, thank you,
Right.
but it's always well-meaning though. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what you say to a veteran, as long as it's well-meaning, they're going to get it. It's weird, and I'll go home and I might, bitch about it a little bit, but most people are, it's comes from the heart, and that's what's really matters.
Yeah. My last question is, what makes a community worth serving? Or yeah.
What makes a community worth serving? Um, well, this community is it's been the only one that I've ever called home. And so I think that, service to community means that you're going to do everything you can to perpetuate the soul of where you live. And that, Klamath Falls has always been my home, well, at least my home base. And it's absolutely worthy of service. We were talking earlier about the percentage of veterans that live here. So, and there's a legacy here between, the Naval base, the Marine Corps base, the Air Force, Air Guard now, Air Force. We had the Tactical Air Command here back in the 60s and 70s. And there's such a history here. We can't lose that because that's a huge part of who we are and defines the personality of Klamath Falls. And so anything that I can do to perpetuate, this military legacy or this veterans legacy in Klamath Falls, I'm going to do because I feel that that's a big part of what Klamath is. So,
Well, thank you for your service. And
my
thank you
honor.
for your time today.
Sure. Glad to do it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank you to our producer, 40 Deuce Films.